Probably the two biggest things in that game were the turnovers. We did not commit a turnover on our offense. Our running backs did a great job with ball security, and Heath obviously took care of the football on his end. And conversely, on our side of the ball on defense, we made some plays on the football that we had not made in previous weeks. And that was one of my complaints coming out of the Tiffin game. We had some opportunities to pick some balls off and make some plays on some balls. We did not squeeze the football and take advantage of those, and there were times, obviously, on Saturday where we did do that. So, you know, the turnovers and being on the positive end of it, and +5 was, you know, one of the main reasons that the score got to the way it did in the second half. I was impressed with the way that we came out on both sides of the ball at the beginning of the game. We got off to a very good start. We gave up a little, you know, yardage here and there, but we got some stops in the first quarter and forced some punts. And then our offense, you know, went down and didn't settle for field goals, punching in touchdowns. So being up 21-0, and the start that we got was very key. And then they battled back and fought back in the second quarter and in the third quarter. But once we were able to get a couple of those interceptions, and Eric Thompson's interception return for the touchdown really sealed, you know, sealed that game. So offensively, you know, I think Heath did a great job of managing the game. There were some things that, you know, we put in his hands in terms of game management, seeing what we want to get into. I think he handled that very well. Obviously, Javon, you know, had a big day with 4 touchdown catches. Some of that was us trying to give him the ball, but some of those plays the receivers make are also dictated by what Northern does with the coverage. So, for instance, on his first touchdown, we were on a play-action pass, and had the corner chose to sink with Javon. Andrew Lorman probably gets a touchdown. The corner chose to come up on the arrow route, and Javon was in the back of the end zone wide open. So, you know, when your quarterback's 11 of 15 with 5 touchdown passes and no interceptions and is running your offense and managing your game, you know, I think that's pretty impressive. We found out on Thursday that Hershey Jackson was not going to be able to compete because of an injury that he had sustained the previous week against Tiffin. I thought Mike Rattay stepped in and did a great job in his absence. And, you know, that's maybe something that's gone unnoticed a little bit throughout the course of the season, is the depth that we do have at tailback. Norman Schufert is our starting tailback, but Jake Aberg's out for the year with an injury. He actually had surgery on Friday. And I would have said coming out of spring ball, he was definitely in our top, you know, 2-3 tailbacks. And so you lose Jake Aberg and Hershey Jackson. And, you know, probably out of spring ball, Mike Rattay's your 4th tailback, and you're able to come in and he's had the success that he had, I thought was good. Tony Carreri and Israel Woolfork are a little bit of our unsung heroes, I would say, from that game. Tony played his best game to date in terms of blocking and being very physical, and as did Israel. You know, so I thought if there was one complaint on us a little bit offensively, and it happened a little bit last week and it happened again this week, we got to protect our quarterback a little better. There was 2 sacks that he took, but there was also some shots that Heath took after he had released the football. And, you know, we've got to do a better job. And, it's, you know, it's not so much a schematic issue as it's, you know, with our guys up front, just technique and protecting him. He can't, you know, if you went back and looked on the tape, you would notice it based on the stat sheet, but he took a couple shots, and we've got to do a better job up front of protecting our quarterback. You know, not just getting sacked, but also getting hit when he's throwing. Defensively, you know, we knew Carter Kopach was a dangerous player. It was important for us to keep the ball in front of us, and that included our pass rush when he was dropping back to pass, and also in the coverage end of things when he threw some balls. So we didn't give up a whole lot of big plays in the passing game. You know, nobody really got behind us. There was a couple of times in man coverage where they got some balls off. But we did a pretty good job of keeping the ball in front of us for most of the night, and we did have some of that bend but don't break mentality. We were able to keep things in front of us. We knew having watched tape and known Northern Michigan, that when they got in the red zone and things were condensed in terms of spacing, that we could be able to dial up some pressure and get after him a little bit more, that you don't want to do in the middle of the field, because if a guy misses a tackle, it's probably you know, a big play. So we took a few more chances down the red zone with some pressure and some blitzes, and we're able to force some field goal attempts and or get some turnovers down there. So, you know, if I had to complain on the defensive side of the ball, we missed some tackles here and there on some of their wideouts that we've got to make, and then some of our underneath coverage at times wasn't where it needed to be, and that's something we got to go to work on. Special teams, our Marco Idorosa, our freshman kicker, other than one kick that he kind of shanked, he had some really good kicks on the dome and got back to that strong leg we needed him. And I thought that was another a critical thing of the game that goes overlooked was our average starting field position for our defense. You know, the combination of the kicker kicking them inside the 5 most of the night, and then our coverage team is getting better. We're very aggressive on the coverage team, which gave us good starting field position for our defense. Kickoff return, they only kicked off twice to us, and so one of them went out of bounds, wasn't a big factor. You know, we had a couple mistakes on the defensive side of the ball. You know, the one roughing the punter by Mike Hatcher, just that's not a real smart decision at that point in the game with the score being the way it is. So we can coach off that. The block that Zach had was great, and we got to get on that football because that led to their one touchdown was off. We blocked a field goal attempt. They got the ball back and punched it in. So there's some coaching that can go on that end of things too. I think another team that did a great job for us too, it helped our defense, was our punt team. And we talked a lot about that in our program about how kickoff and our punt team, our 2 coverage units, have got to set up field position for our defense. I thought both teams did a really good job. And both freshmen, Marco Idorosa, our freshman punter, and Chris Picano, our freshman punter, and Marco's our kickoff guy, both did a good job in what should have been a very kicker-friendly environment, helping our defense out. And then, you know, one of the disappointing things for me was Ryan Stokes missing that field goal. Snap was good, hold is good. Ryan's been good in practice. He didn't show it obviously in the game. So we've been very good with our red zone offense. We haven't had to kick a whole lot of field goals because the guys on offense have been very efficient in scoring touchdowns. But we've got to, you know, we got to get some confidence. The head coach got to have confidence in our kicker when we get some of those situations to kick a field goal. So that was disappointing to me that we missed that 37-yarder. But as I said in the postgame press conference with my comments that it was a complete team victory, I thought the approach that we had in practice, and probably more importantly, the approach that we had the whole trip. We had a walkthrough Friday night in the Dome. It was a very focused walkthrough. Our guys, I thought, were very locked in. And I think those type of things, you know, being locked in on meetings, showing up on time, and just the way we approach stuff is having benefits that we're seeing on Saturdays. And so that'd be one of the points I'll make to the team here is just the way we approach the whole trip. I thought led to what it ended up. Got another road game coming up. It's another longer drive. First time we've been to Paynesville, so it'll be a new venue for us. You know, I said this last year, and I'm going to say it again. I think this is one of the more, they're winless in the league. This is one of the more dangerous winless teams out there. Their offense is good. Last year they came in here, Bedeveski, their quarterback, is a good player. He kind of went through us in the first half. And last week against Wayne State, they couldn't stop him the first half of the game. Wayne State had only given up about 80 yards rushing, and Lake Erie had 224 yards rushing last week against Wayne State. So I've been watching, you know, we've been watching a lot of tape. The last 2 tapes I've just been watching are us last year in the first quarter and then Wayne State. I mean, he's going through both squads, running, you know, their zone read and their option stuff, been doing a good job. So they've been plagued by turnovers, especially down the red zone, have hurt them. But when you look at their yardage totals, they've been able to really move the ball. So this is going to be a tough test for our defense. He's a good quarterback. He's a senior quarterback. He's a competitive kid. You can tell on tape, and I know from playing him last year, he's a very competitive kid. And he can beat you both with his arm and his legs. And so we got a tough task in front of us. Their defense has struggled. They've got a lot of new faces on their defense. They've changed up their scheme a little bit, given up some big plays. Wayne State was able to throw the ball over their heads for some really big touchdown passes. And they've really struggled to do anything to stop anybody really in the air or on the ground. So heading into this week, it will again come down to turnovers. If we're on the wrong end of the turnover margin, it's going to be tough to battle back from that. And conversely, if we can get some turnovers on defense and when the ball gets spit out on option pitches and things like that, be opportunistic, I would hope that our offense can capitalize on those mistakes and execute, and that we can score and continue our success of being able, when we get in the red zone, get touchdowns and not settle for field goals. You know, I think that'll be a big difference in the game. So I think this is a game that's going to come down to field position and turnovers. And so our special teams and our ball security and being opportunistic on defense will play a big key in this game. So the head coach won't. I know the assistant coaches won't, because we spent the last 24 hours together, and I'm pretty sure our team won't after we send the message. This is not some deal where, you know, we're here, it's beat Tiffin 70-7, had a good road win, we're just going to roll over to Lake Erie. We have to maintain the same things that have led to success here the past 3 weeks, our approach, our humility, the way we've been coming to work every day. I've got to keep and continue, and all that matters right now is these meetings this afternoon and having a great Tuesday practice heading into Lake Erie.
Coach, you touched on the turnover thing a little bit. Is it too simplistic to say maybe the record of Grand Valley right now is reflected on how you've fared in that aspect?
It's a factor, Mike. I don't think it's the only statistic that matters. Yeah, it's been a big factor, but it's not the only thing that matters. You know, it certainly has not allowed us to be in the position we need to be on some of those road losses we had because of the turnovers. I would say you could directly attribute the Findlay loss to turnovers. I don't know if you can directly correlate the Indianapolis loss and the Hillsdale loss strictly to turnovers. There's other things going on within those ball games that led to the losses beyond just the turnovers. So it's a factor. It was not the only factor in those 2 road losses.
Is it almost nice to have another road game again, considering how maybe you've had struggles, but building off a good win last weekend? Yeah,
I think there's positives and negatives to playing. It's like anything in life. There's good and bad with everything. Playing on the road for us to a little bit allows us to get on the bus and get away. We're a little bit more controlled environment with meetings, you know, things like that allow us to get a little bit more focused and locked in. You know, this trip that we took up here to the Upper Peninsula, we made the decision, you know, sometimes on those UP trips we'd left on Thursday night, we decided to leave Friday, and I think it sent a good message to our team about, you know, there's no excuses. We're going to get up, do this whole thing on Friday. We're going to grind through, have a good walkthrough. We're going to get up. You know, we had a 1 o'clock start, our first 1 o'clock start. Our guys were up. You know, pregame meal was at 8, and they were up, very enthusiastic. And so I think some of those things you're able to see as a coach on a road trip more than you are at home. But, you know, it is what you make it. It's not an excuse or a crutch. We're going to get back on the road and go over there and sleep in a hotel and get up, eat a meal, and get ready to play.
Zach, how important is it to build off that win and not just think, you know, oh, okay, we're back, we're okay, we're fine after a couple big wins?
It's extremely important. We don't face another team like Lake Erie's offense usually in the regular season, and we're going to be tried on defense. And we can't think, oh, we rolled over Tiffin, we rolled over Northern Michigan, we're going to be fine on defense, because once you start thinking like that, once you start becoming complacent, then that's when team's going to come and bite you.
What do you remember from last year's game with how difficult it is to kind of defend them?
It's very difficult. You don't know where the ball is going to be. Everybody has to play their assignment and play their technique perfect. If one guy gets out of place, then they're going to pop. The ball is going to pop. And you have to be very disciplined on defense. Sometimes in practice, we'll run the play with no ball, and we'll say, all right, everybody run to where you have to be during some of these walkthroughs. And if one guy's out of place, well, that's where we'll see, oh, he's going to go right there.
Coach, am I imagining it, and maybe I am, that time of possession is becoming a little bit more important as you guys kind of come down the road? Because in the past, there have been a lot of times, obviously, where you guys were able to quick strike and then let the defense kind of go out and get the ball back.
You know, we've never made a big deal about time of possession, and I think that's a philosophical approach to things. And to be honest with you, Mike, it's, you know, I thought on the ride home from Indianapolis a little bit, you know, again, like, take for instance like a Hillsdale team and the way they approach the game. With their offense, it's very efficient. They use a lot of clock, and by doing so, they help protect their defense a little bit. We have, you know, I guess we're not really irresponsible with that, but at the same time, that's not at the forefront of our thinking when it comes to calling plays and or how we operate our offense. We're more about, you know, points and taking advantage of our possessions than we are about trying to take time off the clock, if that makes sense. So, you know, I think we wrestled with that. Obviously, when you're in the middle of you know, we had that losing streak, you start to step back and examine things. Do we need to change the structure of our team? We're not built for that. That's not who we are in our offense. We're an opportunist in our offense, and we're going to try to take what the defense gives us, and we're going to try to score points. And so when you have that type of approach, you know, if you can take a shot down the field and score in one play, 71-yard drive that takes 20 seconds, then you're going to do that. That's kind of who we are. That's what we're built for. That's what our personnel dictates for, so that's who we are. And then after, you know, basically the bottom line is your defense got to play better. You know, like, it wasn't going to try to change our offensive philosophy to protect our defense. No, we're not taking that easy road out. Offense, you keep scoring. Defense, play better and don't keep them out of the end zone. And there are times when you do have leads, like we made some decisions. We had a 3rd and 25 we had a penalty, and we had some issues on one of our possessions, and we didn't try to throw it on 30-25. We really ran the ball. I let the 40-second clock run down before we punted. So there's some things you do subtly within the game, but I say philosophically it's not something that we're trying to do to try to win the time of possession battle in our program.
The reason I asked is it almost seemed like in some ways sometimes you maybe were running to try to set up the pass, but was that more of what you knew you were going to kind of have to do against a team like Northern?
Well, I think some of that was dictated by what Northern Michigan was doing too. When they were playing two high safeties and choosing to do some things, then Heath was getting us into runs to do that. And then conversely, when they were attempting to try to put a few more guys around the line of scrimmage, it wasn't a super complicated game plan that we were attempting to try to throw the ball down the field and try to set some stuff up with some play action. So I think it maybe was less about what we were trying to do is we had a game plan in place to try to take advantage of what Northern was giving us, and it wasn't so much about time of possession, setting things up, that type of deal. It was more about being opportunistic and taking what the defense has given us.
Heath, you've mentioned several times about you trying to get better and better. How have you think you've gotten better at maybe managing the game, and what do you think you still want to improve on?
I mean, there's a number of things I can still improve on. I could go through the list, but I mean, I'm getting to feel more comfortable in there game by game. I thought this game particularly, I didn't make any stupid decisions, poor decisions like I had in the past. I got the ball to the open man, and when we're running the ball as consistently as we have been over the last couple of games, that's pretty easy, When we're clicking on all cylinders, it's pretty easy to play quarterback here, You got guys running wide open down the field. You got O-line protecting you, and you got guys like Norman and Michael Rattay and Hershey Jackson when he's healthy, busting 10-yard, 20-yard gains. So, I mean, I just need to keep becoming more consistent, getting better day by day in practice, and so it's a process. So I'm embracing it, and I'm having fun with it.
Matt and Zach, long time between games for him, Coach, and were you surprised that he had as big an impact on the game as he seemed to have?
No. Good to have you back, Tom. Missed you. It's not the same without you.
I hear the food's still good here.
It's still good. I wasn't surprised because I've coached the kid for 5 years, and I know what he can do. And he knows our defense really well. And so it wasn't there's not a steep learning curve coming off the layoff because he knows it, has played in it, and he's also been around 24/7 down at the football center watching tape and doing things. And so, we also knew that it's hard. He was going to be a little bit winded. We talked about that. He knew that. We knew that as a coaching staff, and so we had some contingency plans when if they went on a longer drive, he may have had to get subbed out. It's not like Zach hasn't been running or trying, but I tell you, when you run around a football field and you're hitting people and you're in the dome and it's in the 70s, you're going to get tired. I don't think there's any way to prepare for that. So that's probably the thing right now. I was really impressed with how he had not tackled anybody in 11 months. He had some really solid tackles out there, and I think that's where he felt his presence more than anything was, just some really solid tackles. And but he's done that in his career here, so it's not overly surprising that he did that Saturday.
Zach, can you talk a little bit about it, your performance in that game at all? Did you have any nerves at all because you hadn't played for quite some time?
I did. I was nervous coming out. Walking out there as first time being a captain out there with Greg and Jim, and we walked out there and Greg looked at me and he was like, "No, last time we were out here as captains on a field, we were going against each other in high school." So that kind of calmed me down a little bit, got me ready to play football again. And I feel like my performance was good for a game one, but not for game six. I had some missed tackles out there, and my man coverage wasn't as good as I wanted to be. And I feel like it was good for game one, but we're in game six. This is week 7 right now, so I need to step it up. I need to pick up my game a lot more. And I just think as a defense, though, completely, everybody rallied together. Eric Thompson had a heck of a game. And then Andre Thomas was out there running around along with Brad Howard, 2 of our strong leaders on defense. And then our DBs, Kenny Veal, our corners, Kenny Veal and Reggie Williams, both had interception apiece. I really feel like they came together as a defense, and we played as a whole this week.
Yeah, and finally, Matt, can you talk a little bit about the fact that you gave up 100 points, actually more than 100 points the first 4 games, then just only a touchdown in each of the last 2? And as a guy who's always been primarily a defensive coach, is this last game maybe a better indication than the Tiffin game that your defense might be pointed in the right direction right now?
Yeah, I think it's hard to put your finger and say there's any one specific reason for that. I think the opponents that you're playing play a factor in it. I think game by game I could go back and look at some of the things that we were not great at. Our rushing defense wasn't too bad. We were fitting things up, doing a good job. We didn't play great man coverage, and that has improved as time has progressed. The Indianapolis deal, our lack of pressure on the quarterback was probably the biggest concern. And, I think we're getting a little bit more. We've tried to do some things to address that. And, so it's the same thing. Like in that 3-game losing skid, if there would have been one common denominator for all 3 losses that could have been addressed, it probably wouldn't have been a 3-game losing skid. What happened was it was a culmination of different things that hurt us on both sides of the ball in all 3 of those games. And so, I think our kids, if anything, a little bit on the defensive side of the ball, heading into there, maybe the Western Oregon gave our players, we didn't give up a touchdown with our first unit, maybe a false sense of how good we are, maybe a false sense of security about our defensive performance. And since we had not played real well in that back-to-back stretch, I think our guys have come back to work and embraced some of the coaching points. So it's one thing to get taught a lesson, it's another thing to learn from it. So I feel like we've been taught some lessons, but sometimes you teach somebody a lesson and maybe they don't learn from it. It's one thing. I feel like we've been taught some lessons, and our staff and our players, especially on the defense, are learning from those experiences. And I think that's about all you can ask.
Coach, you kind of touched upon this a little bit. This is kind of the halfway point of the season. How would you assess where the team's at?
We're making progress. Again, kept saying it during that 3-game losing streak. It's hard to appreciate the people we have in our program unless you're in it, if you're in the deep end every day. And it was not easy when we were losing, but we had fight, like the coaches had fight, the kids had fight. We showed up every day fighting. And I don't have any guarantees for Saturday at Lake Erie. We don't have any guarantees moving forward, but if we keep fighting and approaching things the way we've been approaching, I think we will continue to improve, and you'll see improvement on this football team. And like I said, that's all that really matters at this point, is that we continue to make steps forward and improve, and our performance on the field at Lake Erie is the next biggest thing, but in my mind, how we approach the week up to it is more critical.